Britney Spears addressed the Los Angeles Superior Court regarding her long-running conservatorship, the conservatorship that put her father, Jamie Spears, in charge of nearly every aspect of her life. This has been in place since 2008, and it is the first time that we are now hearing from Britney Spears herself about what she feels about this this program and not having full agency of her life, of her finances. She said in this court hearing, quote, "I feel ganged up on, I feel bullied, and I feel left out and alone, and I'm tired of feeling alone." She said that she's being exploited and that she can't sleep, is depressed, and cries every day. The New York Times earlier this week had accessed some court documents that were not public previously, so we started to get a better sense of how she was feeling about all of this. And then soon after that, she had the court hearing and we got a few quotes from what she had to say. Spears also recalled one incident in which she didn't want to do an additional run of shows in Las Vegas. She felt relieved when her handler said that she didn't have to do the shows anymore, but suspected there would be consequences. Days later, Spears said her therapist told her that he heard she was being uncooperative. She said he then took her off her regular meds and put her on a lithium regimen. Spears said that she wanted to have another child. This is this is incredibly disturbing. Spears said she wanted to have another child, but has been forced to keep an IUD in place. Whether it's her finances, her own body, her mental health, the drug regimen she's on, she just has no control as a result of this, this agreement, this thing that she was forced into back in 2008 and hasn't been able to get out of. So Emma, I want to hear what you have to say about this, because for me, what really stood out was that she talks a lot about being exploited, that she is working and her earnings are being exploited by her father and people on her payroll. So there's a financial incentive for Jamie Spears to keep this, process the way it's been.
Well, not only is she paying for her lawyer, but she's paying for her father's lawyers and all of the lawyers involved. And this is a really heartbreaking story for so many reasons. First of all, free Britney, of course. And if you haven't seen the Hulu New York Times documentary on this, it's just the tip of the iceberg, because we hadn't heard from her in that amount of time, since 2008, essentially, outside of manicured or media appearances that were essentially mandated by her father so that she could keep making money and keep him rolling in the dough. And there are so many different intersectional elements that I think should be explored here. Oddly, I thought about Andrew Yang in this story a bit. Bear with me, because he in the New York primary was talking about how we need to essentially lock up these mentally ill homeless people against their will and bring back forced internment, because they were dangerous and they were an eyesore for people in New York. And that is such a draconian, awful policy where essentially people who have mental health struggles are forced to be prisoners of the state against their will without really any advocacy, because they are powerless. And oddly, there's some similarities in the situation. Britney Spears obviously has a lot of money, but she had a well-documented mental health episode or some struggles back in the time when this happened, and she's never been able to get out of it. And the other element of this is patriarchy, because this would not happen to a male star of her caliber. Robert Downey Jr. broke into multiple homes and had a bunch of arrests, and then a few years later he was sober and he was back on his feet, and I'm happy for him, and he was doing a bunch of movies, and he's Iron Man and one of the richest movie stars ever. And I guess the third element of this too is the money and the greed that was so displayed by her family. I am sickened for her, and the IUD story also fits into the patriarchy too.
Yeah, I think you make great points all around. Just to quickly comment on the Andrew Yang moment, I did see that video, and He definitely did not articulate his point well, and it did come across as incredibly cruel. And to be sure, in California, that program of forced institutionalization of people with mental health issues was draconian, was awful. But what we're experiencing, at least in Los Angeles specifically, I can't speak to other parts of the country, is the pendulum swinging to the extreme opposite end of the spectrum, where you do get attacked. I mean, on 2 different occasions, I was attacked by mentally ill homeless people. I'm not saying that we should force them into being institutionalized, but right now the city is just kind of leaving it as it is, and people are getting attacked on a regular basis. So it's insane that we have these 2 extremes and can't come up with like a better program, a better idea in dealing with this. And of course, I mean, look, at the end of the day, the root issues never really get addressed, right? I mean, if you do have mental health issues, even if you have health insurance, it's really, really hard to have a plan that covers the mental health care that you need, right? A lot of people don't have health insurance at all. And so they might have undiagnosed mental health conditions, and then their situation devolves even further from there. So there are actual root causes and root issues that should be addressed that aren't addressed. And then you look at the Britney Spears situation, and you're absolutely right. I mean, the double standards are pretty clear. I do want to read a few excerpts from the New York Times reporting on this story. They write that she articulated she feels I always have a hard time with this word because I never use it, but she articulated she feels the conservatorship has become an oppressive and controlling tool against her, a court investigator wrote in 2016. The system had, quote, too much control. Ms. Spears said, according to the investigator's account of the conversation, too much, too much. Spears also informed the investigator that she wanted the conservatorship terminated as soon as possible. She is sick of being taken advantage of, and she said she is the one working and earning her money, but everyone around her is on her payroll, the investigator wrote. And also in 2019, Ms. Spears told the court that she felt forced by the conservatorship into a stay at a mental health facility and to perform against her will. I mean, it's just, it's sick. And you can see that just by the way she carries herself, by the fact that she's been so successful in her career, even after she had, a very clear mental health episode in 2008, that she's good. She can take care of herself. She doesn't need to be under the control of her father, who seems to be exploiting her. But unfortunately for now, the hearing ended with no resolution. The Los Angeles Superior Court judge, Brenda Penny, said that Spears's remarks were courageous, and also said that she would have to file a formal petition asking for this program to end before she could render a decision. So hopefully there's light at the end of the tunnel for Britney Spears. But it does bring up some pretty devastating questions about how we deal with mental health issues in this country, in the state of California, and why it is that it's taken this long for the courts to even pay attention to this.
And how complicit we all are in this. I mean, I just want to add, she was a full of life person. I didn't want to use that word incorrectly. And she was essentially beaten down by a society that sexualized her as a teenager, that forced her to be sexy, but like you're also a horrible role model, and we're going to be entirely invasive in every part of your life. I mean, that part of the 2000s, when there was this celebrity culture, it was sick, and we all participated in it.
Oh yeah,
and we all have culpability in it, right? And I read those blogs. I read Perez Hilton. I feel deep shame, and so I think we all have to reckon with it as a society. How we treated her. And by all accounts, I listened to Mariah Carey oddly speak about her. She's apparently the nicest person ever. And she was drugged with lithium and things that she couldn't control. And I feel immensely sorry for her. And there's so many different elements that we could talk about forever, but
I second that, and I thank you, Emma, for saying it, because you're taking personal responsibility. I mean, I obviously have to take personal responsibility too, but my hope is that You know, people can see how culture has evolved. That's really important, and how the kind of comments about female celebrities and the kind of coverage of female celebrities that was incredibly popular back in the early aughts no longer stands today. There's a lot of resistance to it, and I'm proud of that evolution. And so we need to right those wrongs, and getting her freed from this situation and drawing attention to the unfairness and the exploitation she's dealing with is just scratching the surface of that.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.